Hello and welcome to this Blender tutorial brought to you by Luwizart. My name is Emmanuel Okafo, and today we shall be continuing the rigging a wing inside Blender series. So this is going to be the second one, and I'm having a feeling it's going to be the last one because I will try to put as much as I can into this particular video, and if not, we can just make the final one. So if you've watched the previous video, so you will know how we created this wing. So I'm going to leave a link in the description for you guys to be able to download it so you can start from this point. And also, if you want to check out the video right now, I'm going to pop out the link in this video so you can check it out. If you want to watch it before you continue this one, then that is fine too. Okay, so let's jump right into the tutorial. So this is what we ended up with, and as you know from the other tutorial, we will not be focusing on the other part. We'll just be focusing on the wing. So let's go to the top view, and let me just turn off all the distractions. So that's what we have, and I'm gonna hide the median feathers, so we focus on just the important stuff. So this is what we need to worry about. Okay, so let's first of all select all the objects. So you can select everything by hitting the A, as in A for aeroplane. So if you hit that, then you can go to objects, origin to geometry, and finally apply rotation and scale. So this is really important so that Blender is working with the right um, information of your mesh. Okay, so now we can just select this, go into edit mode. We'll just use our edge select and select this edge loop. Then we can do shift S, cursor to selected. So it's going to place the cursor right here. And now what we'll do is we'll just add the armature single bone. Okay, so I'll just turn off this wire for now. Okay, so now we have our bone. So let's play with some display for this. So the first thing I want to do is switch it from the default display type to the wire. So I like to work like this, and also I want to also click in front so that the bone is, we can see the bone anywhere we look. Okay, now let's start placing the bone in the right position. So for us to be more precise, we want to use the snapping features. So we'll just click on this magnet icon right here, and we also want to set it to volume. Okay, and yeah, so center. So now if we go into the edit mode and select one of this and we move it, it's going to snap it in the center. So this parameter right here, center, is good when you have a single object like this. But if you have multiple object overlapping, you want to always leave it at the closest so that Blender recognizes the volume of the closest object. Yeah, so let's just extrude this and extrude this. So this is what we have. So because of the volume, we can be sure that it's going to place it right in the middle of the geometry. So now we need to select all and press Shift N. So before I press Shift N, you will notice the orientation of this bone. If I go to the top view, you can notice this is like an orthographic view of the bone because it's completely flat. And you can also notice this is the same thing. And what you notice, this is kind of, it's not flat like the rest. So one way to do it, if we press Shift N, and so we use global Y, because in by default Blender orientation is that if I bring it on, where is it? Anyway, so Blender orientation is like this is, my annotation is not working. Okay, so Blender annotation is like this is the Z, right? This is the X, and this is the Y. But when you're rigging, you want to make sure that everything is flipped. The Z is now um, is taking the position of the Y, so you should bear that in mind. Okay, so as I did earlier, I press Shift and global Y-axis. So another way to cross-check if everything is going great is you want to turn on this um, axis. So you want to go to the bone level and viewport display axis. So what you want is for you to be more precise, you want to make sure that the Y location of the bone is always facing the next bone to get the best result. So for example, this is actually a wrong result. So we want this to be where the Y is, and likewise. So you could play with the default presets to see if that gets you that. But you can also rotate this. So we could do Shift and Y. So anyway, it's working because this is facing the right direction, though it's not facing it literally, but it also works. So we can leave it at this. So that's that with setting on the main joint for the wing. Now we can proceed. So we just save this. And we can actually proceed to binding it to the fleshy part of the wing. So selecting that, then we do automatic weight. So now what we have is, we just have to turn this off first. So we have it working. So let's say we want to do some we want to clean up the weight paint because right now it doesn't look, it's not behaving really good. So let's try to fix that. So to do that, we select this bone first of all. Okay, so the weight this only works if you've already binded your bone to your mesh. If you have not done it, it's not going to work at all. So if you've binded your mesh like we just did, then we can select the bone and then shift select the geometry, and now we can go to the weight paint mode. So now if we select any bone, we can see the influence of the bone. So right now we can notice this is a bit darker, so we can fix that if we click on single color. So it's going to, because you know Blender viewport shading works in an overlay mode, so if you have color, it's going to influence the display. So yeah, so we can start cleaning it up. So we can add more influence here where it's needed. And another thing is I'm going to move the subdivision to below the armature, so you can see we're getting better preview of the geometries, because now the armature is skipping the subdivision and it's going to even give you better performance. Okay, so for display purposes, I'm gonna switch this bone to a stick bone. So let's get back to the weight bend. So we can just easily eyeball it. So we can use this. And okay, so another method of cleaning up your weight paint is, first of all, I want to click on these two buttons to make sure we retain the pose of geometry even in the edit mode, so we can see what's happening. Okay, so you should also check this preserve volume, as you can see the difference. Okay, so now we can see the preview in edit mode. We can now select these faces. And in the data panel, you want to click on remove. remove. Okay, so we want to repeat it for this too. Okay, so you're seeing we're getting kind of a sharp blend. So now we can get the blur brush and just kind of smooth it out slightly. So right now I want to get like a very sharp joint kind of motion. So we could just select this um, edges here and assign, and assign. And for this we do remove. Okay, so we get like a sharper transition. So if we move this, we should get better result. It's not perfect. I mean, you might want to spend more time working, or better still, I think we need more edge loops here to even make it better. So that's what we needed, more edge loops. Okay, so it's working even better now. So I can go in and fix this topology because this is not working for me. So I can just select this to vertex and hit J. It's gonna join that, and I have to repeat it here. Okay, so everything is working now. So we'll fix this area. So let's see for this one. So as we did earlier, we select the bunch, you select the wing, and we need more edge loop here. And yeah, okay. So I think the main problem was that we needed more edge loops. So yeah, so far everything is this for this part it's all good. So we can proceed to actually rigging the feathers. So now we can um, switch this back to texture and just smooth it out. Okay, so let's start adding the um, bones for the feathers. So the way we do this is still same way, volume. We turn back the snapping feature, and inside edit mode we click this cursor here and hit add, and now we can move this to this bone. So it's gonna do something like this. Okay, and now we can duplicate this. So because the level will be the same, so we can just do something like this. So make sure you save your scene constantly. So depending on how detailed you want your rig to be, that's how much you will subdivide this bones. So I will do that later. So I'm gonna pause the video and come back when I'm done. Okay, so I'm done placing all the individual bones. So we still have this one. We can let's place it here. So with the help of eyeballing it and also using the snapping feature, you want to end up in this position whereby everything is fitting each of the feathers. Okay, so let's switch back to the default style. So it looks messy right now, so probably you want to stick to the to the wire or the stick bone for now. I think that's what I'm using. I use for my rig actually. Okay, so if you're happy with this stage, you can press Shift and let's recalculate the row. So we want to set everything to global Z, and if anything needs to be custom, we can do that too. So as I was saying, if depending how complex you want the control of the feathers to be, that's how much subdivisions you're gonna add to each of these bones. So before we do that, let's select these bones and create a bone group. So I think we need to be in the pose mode. So we can do new bone group. Then we'll assign. And for this bone group, we'll call this wing control, wing bones. And with this, you have ability to change the colors, but I don't know. I'm not interested in that. I just want a situation whereby I can select any bone group I want anytime I want. Okay, so I'm going to invert the selection and we'll create a new bone group and we'll call this feather. Okay, and at this point, just I think this add-on, I don't know whether it's free or not. You can also create a selection set. So this one we call the feathers. Just make it easy for you to select stuff. Yeah, so now what we have is we can hit select and it's going to select this, and we can shift hide the rest because now what we want to do, it will just want to subdivide it one time. So I don't want the rig to be too detailed, so just subdividing it one time is enough for me. So if you want more, you can add more subdivisions. Yeah, so I'm happy with this. Let's parent this, because right now if we move this, nothing is, it's just moving the wing, the chicken wing, but we want the feathers to follow also. So the way you parent it is quite simple. So this ones will be parented to this. So the closest feathers should be, the feathers should be parented to the closest wing bone. So these are closest, so parent them, and then we have this ones. So we'll parent it to this. I think this two need to be parented here. So now what we have is when we move this, everything follows. Okay, so don't worry, we'll add constraint that we automatically make all these bones will move appropriately. So right now we just want to get the whole bones moving together. So this is what we have right now. So nothing fancy. The next is to bind these feathers to the rig. So to do that, there's no simple way, you just have to do the work. So first of all, we select all the geometry, shift select the bones, Control P, automatic weight, because we want some starting point. So this is quite messy. So the best way for us is to actually do this manually, and you can just put on music and enjoy it. I am just going to pause the video. I'm just going to do like two, and then I'll pause the video and complete the rest. So the way I will do it is, let's bind it once more. We select this, shift select the bone and hit Control P, but this time we want to select with empty group. So what this means is going to create the bones in the vertex, going to create a vertex group for each of these bones, but there's no influence. So even though you move these bones, nothing's going to happen. You will have to go in and paint it manually. Okay, so I'll be showing, there are different techniques to actually do this easily, so let me show you them. Let me show you the technique. So we can select the bone, shift select this object and we pop into our weight paint mode. So right now, if we select this bone and start painting, bring out the right brush. So if I grab my draw brush, if I start painting now, you can notice it's going to influence bones that we don't want. So we can just use the poly mask. And now if we select just using the L, like L for luggage, if we use it to select one feather, we have masked it, we mask it so that the influence is just going to affect that. Okay, so this is the method, but if you want, this is the method we're going to use to fix this. But if you want to select the bone, you have to go out of this mode. That's just the not so fun part. But you could just easily add a shortcut for that. So right, let me create one shortcut for this. So I can do assign shortcut, and that shortcut will be holding down Alt 2. So now if I hold down Alt 2, I can easily flip between the mode, and when I'm done, if I don't want to save it, I can easily remove the shortcut anytime. So I like it. And if you want to save it for when you open your blend file, you can go to the preference, and if it loads, Blender, just give it a while. Okay, so it's here. So we can save this preference. Now I can hit F2, select I can just easily work really smart and fast. So this is a technique you can use to speed up your workflow. So we can easily pop out of the modes, pop in back, select the modes, select the poly we need, and mask it. Okay, so right now I'm going to pause this video, and then I will come back when I'm done. Okay, so I'm almost done. I found out something that is going to even speed up this process even further. So you guys, I showed you that you could easily toggle into this poly mask mode. So let's say we select this particular feather, and we want to just paint it in. Instead of using the brush and start painting, because you will miss some areas and you will still have to use the blob brush to blend it in, you can easily use this gradient brush. So by most of the times the default value is set to 0, but what you want to do is set it to 1 and just drag it. So it's gonna not only fill up the right areas, it's going to also create a nice blend. And when you're done, you can select the other one and just drag it from this position, and it fills it up nicely, and it handles everything. Okay, so let's also do this. We select the faces and just drag it, and we do it for this one too. We'll just drag it, and yeah, so we are done with that. So we are done with painting in the feathers. So we have to repeat the same things for the small feathers, but we are not going to like repaint. We are not going to like recreate. We're not going to like create bones for it. We're just going to use the same bones and just fill it up. We're going to use use the same bone to paint in the weight for the medium feathers. Yeah, so let me do that quickly, and I will come back when I'm done. Let me just show you a quick example, because this may be a bit confusing, because they're not correctly aligned. So you want to just use your artistic skill and kind of predict the bones you want to influence a particular feather. For example, we have these two feathers. Before that, let's bind it. So Control P with empty groups. Okay, and So weight paint. So we want this particular bone to influence the small feathers. So for this instance, we want it to be influencing about two feathers. Okay, so we could then use the mask in feature and select the two feathers we want it to influence, and we can use a gradient brush and just fill it up. Oh, yeah, so we could do that. So that would be the approach for this one. So for this same thing, we want this, and that's that. So this one will be influenced by, so you just use your eyeball to like predict the influence of the bones you want to affect it. So we'll have it looking, just go back to object mode. So we have it looking something like this. Okay, so I'm gonna pause the video and just paint in the weight for the medium faders, and then we can proceed to adding the constraints. Okay, so I am done binding the medium faders too. So as you can see, so everything is working nicely. Okay, so the next step is to actually start adding constraints. So I can go now and call this wing break. Okay, I took a long break. I had to do something. Um, that's why the continuation seemed a bit off. So now let's try to add constraint to our feathers because it's looking good, but we need to make it even awesome. So let's start from this. The constraint will not be really complicated or anything. It's just straightforward. So right now we want whereby when we rotate this particular feather, then we want to have like a nice gradient, and bring back my annotation too. So we want to have like a nice gradient of feathers falling along. Okay, something like this. So to do that, we need the copy rotation constraint. So we do like okay, so what we need to do is we select this bone, right? Shift select this one, and then we hold on Control Shift C. Then we do copy rotation. So it brings up this nice menu. We want to set it to local space. Okay, and then we can reduce the influence. So what we get is when we rotate this, I think we need to reduce it more. So like 0.2. Okay, so let's repeat that. So it's following along. We could increase it slightly. So we could just select this, and do Control C, copy bone constraint, and now all we need to do is just play with the influence. Okay, so if we move the single bone, we get the feeling that the wing is um, elastic. So if you even want to get like more like a nice curvature, so we could do copy constraint and just reduce the influence. So that's all this is. It's very straightforward. So now we get like a nice curvature to the whole stuff, and you can see pose it individually. So now you just want to go through and make sure everything looks smooth as possible. So increase this slightly. Let's reduce this. Okay. Need to do for this one. Okay. So this is perfect. Okay. And then we need to repeat it for this one also. So selecting this bone, shift select this, Control Shift C, copy rotation, set it to local space. And so what we're saying is wrong coordinate, so we can do Shift and Y. So this should follow appropriately. Okay, so right now it's not following the right, like it's going the negative direction. So we could just invert it. Okay, so that fixes that. So we can just copy this, copy one constraint. So not so much. Okay, so now if we move this, we get this kind of stretchiness between it. So we could even go further, but I think it's gonna go crazy because their parents is going to create an error if I'm not right, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, okay, so yes. So for example, just go out of the, let me be creative. So if I want to like make this bone also follow the small one, we could add a single bone, right? And make this to follow the rotation, copy rotate, oh, wrong selection. We make this to copy the rotation, local space. So we have it going the wrong way. We could invert it. Okay, then this we drive this local space. Okay, so if we move this, so we can get it moving.
Here's what I found.
We can reduce the influence slightly, so you can get this kind of motion. So I'm just playing around. You don't really need that for this instance, but everything else is good. So this is working well. This is working well. Yeah, so that's basically that. So the last feature of this bone is to be automatically fold on command. So right now, if you want to fold this bone, you need to pose it manually. So for example, if you want to create a nice dead resting pose, something like this. Okay, so you might want to just grab some of these feather bones and rotate them. You could move them if you like. Not, sorry, don't move them. Just rotate it slightly. So let's say this is the resting pose. I mean, you might want to make more research for how it looks, but anyway, so we want it by automatic. We want automatically that all the bones to just go to a certain resting pose. So for that, we need to add a new bone. So this is the single bone. Once we move this bone, everything rotates. So the next step is to just go to your animation tab. For now, we'll just hide this bone and select all the bones you want to animate. Hit insert keyframe by the first frame, and we'll just go any number of frames and just pause this. Pause it. I've forgotten how I paused it. But something like this. Okay, then I can manually just move it into place. Anyway, I forgot how a lot of work went into that bed rig. Anyway, so you can just pose it any way you need to pose it, because this will be used constantly automatically to just set itself up. So you want to spend time with yours. So let's say I'm happy with this. I can just insert another keyframe, and yeah, so this is what we have. So it's going from the default. Something is wrong. So let's do that again. Let's say we're happy with this pose. Let's see the animation. Okay, so I think I got it right. I didn't really pose. I rotated. The rotation was wrong. So now what we have is from the default pose we can get this pose here. So we want, when we just flip the switch, it rotates automatically. So now we have created the animation. What we want to do is switch to the dope editor. Okay, and from here we can switch to the action editor. Okay, so we can call this wing collapse. Okay, and I select everything. Everything is good, so we can save this animation. You should save it so that it's always there in this blend file. So that's what this nice save button does, and you can delete this. So now no animation is applied to the rig. So for this next step, let me just make everything neat or cleaner. So I will go to selection set, and I want to hide all these smaller bones first of all. Okay, so let's first apply the constraint. Okay, so let's apply the constraint to this bones first. So we'll select this particular bone that is going to automatically flip on the switch. Shift select this bone, and holding Control Shift C, we want to select action, the action constraint. So it's going to create this constraint, and it's going to require us to input some values, some information. So the first one is the animation we created, which is the wing collapse. So once we add that, that's that. Okay, so we have inputted the action, which is the wing collapse. So next is from target. So this basically means for instance, we want, when we move this particular bone in the y direction, local space, then the action is being executed. We get the collapse of the wing, so we want to set it to y local space, and we have to change the coordinate to local space. So now we get this pop. So it's kind of working. So let's also continue onto the action range. For the action range, is the length of the keyframe. So we already know the animation lasts for 7 frames. So we can make it start at frame 0. If you have it longer, you want to input that. But for this, we have it stopping at frame 7. Okay, then for the target range, if we set this to 7, it just basically means how much time is it going to take for it to get there. So if I move this, you can see it's taking longer time for the animation to kick in. But if we set this to 1, it's gonna get there faster. Okay, so for something like this, let's say 3 is appropriate. So we want it to get there faster, and also we want it to not be so fast, but we want it kind of fast so it could hide any mistake we have made. Okay, so I'm happy with it. Now what I would do is select these 2 bones and just copy the bone constraint, so all the information is transferred to it appropriately. So as you can see, it's working now. Okay, so I also want to apply this to the rest of these bones, because we also added some animation to this individual feather bone. So we want it to be also affected by the system. So I will hide the ones we've already applied it to. I can select this and Control I, then select this particular bone and hit Control C. So we do copy selected constraint, and we select the action, and then we need to also hide this one. So let's repeat the action, invert selection, just select this, Control C, copy selected constraint action, and unhide everything. Now when we move this, so it's going to apply it to all the bones. Okay, so yeah, so everything is working great. So I mean, this pose is not the best, so you want to take time in weight painting and also um, posing it. So this is just like a basic principle behind creating the wing. If you do this right if you do it the right way and take your time to do it, you will get very good result. Yeah, so that's the basic functionality for this nice wing. As you can see, we can also control the individual feathers, and we get this kind of smooth folding effect when we move this. Okay, because they're all copying the rotation. Yeah, so that's basically it. So I'm just gonna add one final helpful tip. So you don't want to always see this um, feather bones, because they can be quite distracting to the scene or to the animator. So what you want to do is create a system whereby you can be able to switch it off, and you can turn it on and off anytime you want. So let's set that up. So it's good we already have a bone group, because we can just select the ones we need and move it to a different bone layer. Okay, so with drivers now we can call upon this layer anytime we want. So to do that, we need to create a reference bone. So this is the bone. Anytime we select this bone, then we can be able to see parameters for the driver to be able to turn this layer off and on. So selecting this bone, I will go to the bone panel, um, custom, let's add. Okay, so in the bone panel, you want to add the custom property. So for the custom property, we'll call this um, feathers, feather bones. Okay, so for the property value, we want to set it to 1 and the default value to 0. So what this basically means is when you have we have integers and decimals. So decimal are numbers with like 1.0, that's a decimal number. So that means that there are values in between the 1 and 0. So from there you can get point 0.8, point 0.9. So it creates like a very linear, um, a smooth transition. What I mean by that is, for example, this is a decimal because we can see 1.0. So we have like values in between the 1.0. But if you have like an integer which is 1, the only next value is 0, so you're getting like a off and on switch. So that's what we want in this instance. So we want the default value to be set to 0 so that the layer is hidden. But we also want a system whereby we can have like an off and off switch. We don't want any transition. So yeah, that's that. You could also add tips. So you could say on hide, feather control bones. Okay, so this is going to appear anytime you hover around this. So you can see on hide feather control bones. So as you can see, now let's make this work, because right now this isn't working. So we can just right click and we do copy data path. So you just want to copy this, and now we can go to this bone position to the bone layers, and in the layer where you have your feather bone, so you want to right click and add, you want to add a driver. So for, I don't know, this is very minimal settings, so I want more settings. I can do show in driver editor. So what we want here is basically straightforward. So we want, for the expression, we want to set it to val, because the name of the variable here is val. Because if I set this to boy, I need to set this to boy too. So that's just basic principle. And so with this, you can do like boy plus 1 to get different kind of awesome stuff. So next we want to switch this, the type from the transformation channel. We want to switch it to single property. Okay, so for the single property, we want to select the wing rig. So the reason I'm selecting the wing rig is because this bone has this property, and this bone belongs to the wing rig. Okay, so that's why I'm selecting it. So when I copy the data part, this is just copying informations about this particular bones, because there is no parameter to include the bone name here. So you just need the data part. So when I paste this, we have done, we can access the information of this bone. Okay, so that's the basic principle behind that. So now we can be able to switch this on and off anytime we like. Yeah. So you have to select this bone to be able to see this property, and now we can pause it without worrying about distraction. And if ever we need to correct some shapes, we can bring this out, pause it, and hide it. Okay, and even awesomely, we can create, we have some animation for the folding, so I'll just unhide this for now. Okay, we can easily just move it into place. So yeah, I fulfilled everything I said I was going to show you guys in this process, and I'm really glad we did this whole tutorials in just 2 videos. So I'm going to give you guys a startup file, and I'm also going to give you this finished file, so you can do with it anything you want. Thank you again for watching this tutorial. I hope it was helpful. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up so that YouTube can suggest this video to more Blender users. Or even better still, you could show your friends, you could post it in groups and stuff. Yeah, thank you guys. Bye bye for now. See you next time.